The change in my life came when I arrived to Shelton, Washington, all the way from Germany to Texas, driving with truck drivers became my worries at first. When I first got into the first truck driver person that I met, I will never forget him. He was an awesome person, but tender. He knew my pain, but he really didn't know what was going on with me. He asked me, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Nothing." He says, "You're going a long ways and you don't even know where you're going." And I said, "Well, that's life. Would you please let it be like that? I don't want to talk to you about my life." When I came to Shelton, as I passed through the whole situation with human trafficking, I was sold at 14. My mom sold me as a slave. It's been very difficult to really swallow that my own mother will do something like that to her daughter. It wasn't because she was didn't have any money. She was a very successful woman, a very interesting woman. She used to have her own boutique and used to be very popular in New York City. I wonder why she did that. I always thought to myself. When she took me to India, because my grandmother used to live in India, she decided to, as we were arrived to India, we were going to spend only 2 days with my grandmother. And then after that, I disappeared. Never seen my grandmother again. Never seen anybody of my family. And for 22 years, I was bonded with slavery. And I was put into a business selling people for my, you can call it pimp, you can call it my master. There's many different ways of ways to say that word, and to be able to see the confusion in my life as I went through sales, being sold, being raped, then going out there and selling people as a profit. It was a big emotional situation in my life, which I couldn't understand, and I was so what I call confused because I didn't know. I was just 14-year-old. So as I went through 22 years of selling children for another pimp and making him a $32 billion business that has grown more and more here in the United States nowadays, and all over the world. We say, okay, well, that happens in other countries. No, it's happening here in America. Children are disappearing so easy. Lindsey Bond. I always thought that in my heart, since I heard her case, that she was taken for human trafficking. After I spoken to a lot of detectives and a lot of people. And they couldn't believe what I was saying, and then when they came back to me and said, "I think you're right," it was already too late. But for God, it's never too late. Because I was 22 years, and after 22 years, God took me out of that desperation, that this situation of being sold and selling people and making a profit, for other people to get rich, and so I became very, I wasn't really sure if I was ever going to get out of that situation, but God took a time, and He had the time, a timing that it was not only mine, but it was His, because He knew that I was His child, even though I didn't know it. So when I came here to Shelton and started, first Forks, Washington, I stayed in Forks. There's no vampires here, to tell you the truth. I have to make you laugh. You look so serious. There's no vampires. I'm serious. I was there for a whole year in a cabin that God took me to as the trucker was coming to Shelton, to Forks, Washington, to go and deliver some items for a company. And in the middle of Shelton and Forks, there is a path in there where people go and go camping. And that was all full of emptiness, houses in there. I felt rich that day when I went down there for the first time, when I got out of that truck, and I continued to walk in the woods because I needed to hide. I needed to get out of that situation. So when I got in right there, there was a bunch of tents and a bunch of houses that were empty. And so God knew me, and He knew my needs, and He knew what I needed in that moment until I can heal myself and come back to fight this battle that I'm fighting right now to save life of victims that are suffering right now and that are asking not my help but your help to raise funding for so we can take them out of that situation. Because when I came here, I didn't have that help. I went to the biggest business for human trafficking, and they told me that they couldn't help me because I was domestic. I said, what's that? Domestic. Domestic is when you're born here in the United States, and because they said, oh, well, there's Social Security, there's a welfare that you can go and get, but because I have to take care of my identity so I would not be found by my trafficker, I was homeless for, I would say, 4 years until I came over here to Shelton and decided that I was going to look for nonprofit organizations that can help me to help myself to get better, because I have problems mentally and physical. And so because I was tortured mentally and physical, I had to heal first before I can come out and talk to you right now and be a part of Angels in the Field. And that's when Angels in the Field started, grew in 2007. And so it's been 5 years now, and I just thank God for that. So I think that we're ready.